A tragic event. We've had several agencies across the country reach out to us to give a presentation on this and how they could possibly prevent a similar attack. And just as important, how if one were to occur, they could mitigate it.
Just yesterday, they released the body cam video of the officers there. Can you kind of speak about how integral that was to your investigation?
We had several thousands of hours of video. In this day and age, video is everywhere, and that included the body camera video that the officers were wearing that night. We did recently release some of that video. Obviously, when you have an event occur and you do have video and audio of it, it's very integral to an investigation. It helps you sort through what actually occurred and not just rely upon witnesses.
Can you talk a little bit about what different things the training covers?
So today's training covers a broad spectrum of the community, and those people who are first responders, doctors, nurses, EMS, as well as coroners, everyone who is going to play a part in the aftermath of such an event.
And through that, you never think that something like that is going to happen, but what is and like you probably didn't think it there, but what is the value of taking this time to get prepared for something so tragic?
So the most important thing is to educate our fellow law enforcement officers, law enforcement community, first responder community, to prevent an act such as this. Secondly, like I said before, that if it were to occur, we want first responders and the communities to be as prepared as possible. We have to take what we learned, both good and bad, and the mistakes that we made and the good things that we did. We have to share that across the United States with every community so that we prevent a tragic event like this again, occurring again, and secondly, to mitigate it should it occur.
And what are some things you learned?
We had a number of, obviously, lessons learned here. There's several changes that we've made and the security industry has made in our city. We have made changes to how we handle open-air events. We have made significant changes to how we ensure a person does not get this many weapons into one location.
And when you reflect on your career in law enforcement, I mean, had there ever been an incident in your career where there were so many officers already on scene when this kind of violence just ensued?
Well, this was a pre-planned event. Obviously, it was a 3-night event, so it was staffed with officers. Talking about prior large-scale events, those are usually, and it's the same in every jurisdiction, those are usually staffed beforehand with officers.
Before this event, how many officers would be at a typical event like this? And what are you looking at now in terms of staffing numbers?
So it's not so much the number of officers, it's more importantly how you deploy them, where you deploy them to, the overwatch that you have, and the quick response forces that you have should an event like this occur. At this particular event, there were upwards of 40 officers assigned to it. But again, it's more important as to how you use those resources, where you deploy those resources, than it is the number of resources.
Can you talk a little bit about your role the day in the immediate aftermath and kind of maybe what you learned from the multi-jurisdictional investigation?
Sure. So like any police executive, my role was to make sure that all the resources were deployed properly, that we had the necessary resources there to eliminate the threat, to get the emergency medical services there to the victims, and then subsequently for the follow-up investigation to ensure that it was in fact one person who had carried out this event, that there was no one else involved in it, and of course the recovery for the victims, for the community, and for all of our city.
What do you hope that the people that go through this training take away from it?
Partnerships. We're a large police department, the 7th largest in the nation, but we could not have done it without the private sector partnership, state, local, and federal partners in law enforcement, and the first responder community. So Thanks for coming today. I appreciate it. And hopefully we'll
Do you have time
keep
for
this
one
community
more?
safe. Yeah, go ahead.
Going back to the body cams, I know you mentioned there's video everywhere. Everybody's got a cell phone these days. I know sometimes people will record events after a fact. That can be kind of a double-edged sword as far as the justice system's concerned. Do you feel like body cameras can be that kind of same double-edged sword, or do you think that's something that should be on officers at all times, rolling at all times?
So with respect to body cameras, I mean, law enforcement's about transparency, and it's about making sure that we get it right. So body cameras are a great innovation for law enforcement. With everything, there comes unintended consequences, the money to store it, the amounts of data that you're collecting, the cost of the cameras themselves, making sure officers are following policy and turning them on when they should be. So very, very good and important tool for law enforcement, but not without some issues, of course.
I just have a quick logistic question. Have you gone and done these at multiple different?
Yeah, so we've had a number of requests across the country. Most every major police department has requested we give this presentation, and I think this is the 6th one that I've given.
And what different groups are invited to it?
So it's across the first responder spectrum, EMS, obviously law enforcement, federal agencies, hospital nurses, doctors, all of those who would be part of that initial response and the subsequent follow-up investigation.